Cool. Awesome. That tells me we are good to go. So thank you all for joining us tonight for the Connecticut Priority Waters Rundown. This is a live Zoom presentation designed for YouTube to talk about Trout Unlimited efforts across the state. I'll be sitting in the host chair this evening and introducing you to some of the fine folks that work in support of Connecticut's Trout Unlimited conservation efforts. I would love to turn it over to you, Tracy, if you would, to introduce the rest of our lovely team.
You bet. Hi, everyone. I am Tracy Brown, and I am the program director for New York and Connecticut and lead the team, the conservation team in the States. So I guess next slide, we have here today the rest of the Connecticut team, which consists of myself, Jesse Vidala, who was just speaking. He's our engagement manager, and Gerald Bafati.
Barafati, yeah.
Barafati. There you go. I was like, have I ever heard that? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And he works specifically as a coordinator for our Mianus chapter down in Southeast Connecticut. And then John Vanderwerf is our new addition to the team, and he is the Connecticut project manager. And then we also have joining with us is Richard Nutty, who is the chair for our Connecticut Council. And I think as we go through the slides, please jump in and introduce yourself and talk about what your role is in Connecticut as you introduce your slides. How's that sound?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds great. Tracy, thank you for that awesome lead up. Obviously, for folks who are just tapping in, again, another good centering note to make at this point is that our conservation staff works in cohesive collaboration with volunteer chapters all over the state of Connecticut. Richard, as we mentioned, representing the state council, is another branch of the arms of Trout Unlimited's conservation work. So we'll talk a little bit more about some of the initiatives that are happening at a volunteer chapter level at TU a little bit later. And the focal point for our discussion tonight is on Trout Unlimited's priority waters. And in our next slide, you'll get to learn a little bit more about that. But I think it's great to say that this whole thing happens by way of staff as well as volunteers and our state council, which helps kind of orchestrate all of the above. So a really great program. And thank you for, again, tapping in to watch it tonight. So let's get in on priority waters for Connecticut.
All right. So the story of priority waters at this point is several years in. And really the concept came about as part of our most recent strategic planning effort. And it was the focus of priority waters was to make sure that we had spent time with our grassroots and our partners to really understand and make sure that we were working in the areas where we could have the most impact for native and wild trout on the landscape. And so what that process entailed was us looking at the science, whatever kind of science we might have, and pairing that with conversations with our grassroots members, our partners, and really trying to understand that future focus on making a difference on the ground. So we weren't changing anything in terms of what kind of work we were doing. We just wanted to kind of reevaluate where we would have the biggest impact on the ground. And again, the focus it was driven by science. It was focused on wild and native trout recovery. And it was bringing both the grassroots staff and our partners together to really have that discussion about where we should be working from now and into the future, where we could really see conservation changes on the landscape.
Awesome. Well stated. Thanks, Tracy. Okay, so that's our cue in on priority waters, and we can dig in on the map, but I think it should just be noted for anyone, obviously the website link is there. We'll share it as well. This is a state dedicated page, shows a little bit about each of these projects. It's also where news articles get updated on the TU blog. You'll see them there for the state of Connecticut.
And I think that's a good point because our priority waters wasn't just done in Connecticut, it was done in every single state across the nation. And so as we're talking about priority waters specific to Connecticut, that theme and that focus is you can go onto our website and see, hey, where are the priority waters in Wyoming? Because we have done this exercise across the entire country. And so again, our conservation goals haven't changed. They will seem really familiar to you as I go through them, but it was really to, again, focus our energies, figure out where we could really make a difference on the ground. So our 5-year conservation goals in our priority waters are nothing new. Reconnecting streams and in watersheds, focusing on where trout need to move freely through the landscape to complete all of their life history. Again, we've been doing culvert replacements, dam removal, so that strategy has not changed. Understanding current conditions so that we could then plan for and understand changes through time. And so doing that science monitoring up front, and then doing our projects and then following up with the subsequent monitoring to be able to evaluate our effectiveness on the ground. And in the process of engaging our partners, our members in our activities, so we're all working as a team to complete the conservation work. And our partners are so critical to everything we do. So making sure that where our priorities overlap with other partners, that kind of builds a momentum in those landscapes. And then overall, for us in the East, it's really expanding the understanding of native brook trout, because they are our native trout on the East Coast, as we all know.
Awesome. Well said.
And so again, this is just more of a visual representation of those strategies, the assessment, really gathering that data up front, focusing on reconnection and restoration, reconnection, culverts, dams, making sure trout and other cold water species can move freely, restoration, really addressing habitat deficiencies where we have recognized those deficiencies, and then engaging our members and our partners and the community in the work of restoration.
Awesome. I think just to make some extra cliff notes for folks who might be tapping in, if you've not seen our work before, just to expand on Tracy's point, the top left here, the assessments, what you have is a seasonal survey crew hired by Trout Unlimited in New York State and across Connecticut as well to do work to study culverts and pipes to make sure that fish, specifically trout and salmon, are able to pass up and down through tributaries and streams of all sizes, especially to encourage opportunities for spawning. So our assessment work happens in the early seasons to find these challenges. Again, reconnection is the big goal. You see a wide open arc, a replaced culvert there that obviously creates a much stronger solution for fish passage. On the bottom left, you see the example of work done to restore a deeply eroded bank. If you've been wandering your favorite trout stream and seen a ton of sediment just deeply cutting into a bank, falling into the stream, lots of turbidity in the stream, very often those causes come from deep erosion on banks upstream from where you're standing. So a project like this that TU does for restoration does stabilize and improve the flow through that area, and also creates amazing habitat for the trout underneath that type of structure. And then the last piece too, again, to expand on this, the last piece of our restoration or reconnection work typically involves replanting and helping to improve riparian zones. So we're putting native trees down right where we've been working to improve these various features of the streams. We're also very aware of, again, the importance of improving riparian buffers and replacing native trees. So we like to plan these events, bring folks out. We have a really awesome event coming up pretty soon, which we'll talk about in a few slides. But again, engagement, getting the community tied into the project is very much a conservation strategy. As we meet incredible folks who are passionate and driven about what we do, that's the whole nature of the engagement side.
Can we just add that we do have a few chapters with certified people that do culvert assessments too. So as a volunteer and a citizen scientist, once you're trained, you can dive in as well. So it's an opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Rich. Appreciate it. We're at the map.
We're at the map. So in Connecticut, we identified the Housatonic, the Farmington, the Shetucket, the Pawcatuck, the South Shore, Mystic River, and then Pine Brook as our priority waters. And you can see from the map that they are different scales in terms of watershed size. And that decision of how to identify the specific watershed at what size was tied to a lot of the science where the brook trout were, where the wild trout were, but also our focal watersheds and what that looked like on the landscape for our chapters, for staff doing work, and what that also could pair nicely with our partner work and also funding. So all of that overlay kind of went into the strategy for identifying these landscapes as priority waters for Connecticut.
Michael, if I can put you on the spot, any of these rivers or watersheds, places that you like to fish?
Are you asking me?
Yep,
Yes,
you, Michael.
I like.
Yeah,
Well, I've fished on the Farmington, the Shetucket, and the Housatonic.
awesome.
And I've certainly been to the South Shore of Mystic. And but I've never fished in there, but I was planning on doing it this spring. So
Beautiful.
so
Awesome.
I'm
Well,
trying. How's that?
that's what we like to hear. I think it's fun to talk about these things in that wide context. I still have so much to learn about it. And again, part of what this Priority Waters campaign does is we get to meet folks who know a lot about these watersheds. So it's really exciting. And this is very much an encouraging time for us to meet more people. When we get to topics like the Pine Brook and the South Shore, we're really hoping to meet communities there and build an excited and connected conservation group, or meet others that have already done that work as well. So this is as much a time for making reconnection and restoration projects as it is building community. So,
Well, I know the names of a few people that have forgotten more about those areas than I'll ever learn. But we can talk about that in the future if you need to.
I love that. Great. Thank you.
And Michael,
Cool.
this energy will drive younger people to us too. You just said something very interesting at the beginning. We have to get younger as an organization, and this team will help us.
I appreciate that. And I also feel that same enthusiasm. So thank you for the encouragement. Tracy, anything else on the map screen, or you want to slide on?
Well, I think that you'll see that as we go through the slides, some of our priority waters are more developed in terms of the types of projects we're doing, the longevity that we've been doing projects, and some are brand new. We're still at that assessment phase or trying to figure out what the best first step is in those watersheds. But we didn't want to leave out watersheds that showed strong promise. So we're optimistic as we move, forward, that we will have robust programming in all of our priority waters. And we're really thankful. So for a lot of years, it was just me in the Northwest corner doing a lot of work. And then in comes Gerald, and he's doing a lot of work down in the Mayanas chapter. And then Jesse, we were so grateful to add him, and he was trying to pull together the chapters. And then Rich came into the scene. And then most recently, John, we were able to hire as our project manager. And just that move itself really has had somebody really focused in on just Connecticut work across the state. And I think we're really seeing kind of momentum. So we're excited about that.
I feel the same. Learning a lot from my teammates, which is a great part about this too. So awesome
Absolutely.
stuff. Okay. All right, let's dive in here. John, I'm flipping this one to you. This is all about collaboration, and I'd love for your voice to be on it. So go for it.
Yeah, so speaking about learning from teammates and collaborating, one of the things that we're really proud to be a part of is the River Restoration Network. This is a group of river practitioners, watershed stewards that are all interested in barrier removal or dam removal, culvert restoration, retrofitting in some way or another. So I really want to highlight that partnership is key in getting any of these projects done. We can't do it all by ourselves. We can't know everything. We depend on local knowledge. We depend on partnerships for everything under the sun to be able to get everything done efficiently in the best way possible. And what this river restoration network really is focusing on is collaborating, sharing information, and creating educational opportunities and outreach. One of the main goals of this is to build educational events, pamphlets, webinars, brochures. It's really focused on building things to then train people and educate people and why what we're doing is important to help educate and get people to understand. So there's a big kind of term thrown around in the meetings referred to as training the trainer. What River Restoration is focusing on is training all of the organizations down here so everyone's on the same standardized pace, so then we can go out and train municipalities, other organizations, DOT groups, everyone under the sun to not only be thinking about how their dams and their roadways influence fish passage, but then how to assess it and move forward with finding funding sources and things of that nature to streamline the process of getting these projects done.
Yeah, and I
Awesome.
also throw out that another unique component of this river restoration network is that collectively we fundraise for the group. So it's not just another group that we're trying to figure out how to find funding and of ourselves to show up at meetings. We actually work together. We put in applications to fund this group and have deliverables every year that we all kind of participate in. And that is unique. So it's not just an ask for us to participate in this group. It's actually providing funding for us to spend time and really focus on the group. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's such a successful model.
That is really unique. I think it's often the response that there's committees for everything and another committee about another committee. And so it's great that we've got such a really clear and cut plan. So this is great. I think this plays a lot into the next couple of slides where we talk about how and who we've partnered with in the past and who we're working with currently. Excited about a couple of these. So I can jump right in on this one. We have been supporting the Farmington River Watershed Association in support of, again, healthy riparian zones and really strong support for the watershed as a whole. Stewards of the Farmington Valley, obviously, are the Trout Unlimited Farmington Valley chapter. Tremendously faithful folks who have taken care of this river and have done a ton of work to not only increase the knowledge shared publicly about the river, but to stand up for all the challenges that it could possibly need. So from a staff perspective, we're very thankful to be able to work with the board and leadership at the chapter and organize really fun events on our own, also supporting their own chapter vision as well. So a project in particular that we're really excited to be working on is coming up in just 2 weeks, the tree planting on the Farmington River, March 28th and 29th. We have 2 days available. This is a fun tree planting event open to the public. We've got a total of 500 native trees that we're hoping to plant on the Frey property out at FRWA. You can see from my notes here, we got some fun highlight points of why you should absolutely come. We made some limited edition tote bags, which I think are really cool. We've got great food, Spanish tapas food, and it's only just 2 days. And we're going to try and do some fishing in and around when we're planting. I think it's going to be a really good opportunity to showcase just what TU is focused on, which is bringing people together around watersheds. We really kind of encourage the idea that really healthy rivers and folks that enjoy them have this great opportunity to share in a culture, in a community. So we really draw close at these events. They're a really good time. I've made a lot of long-lasting friendships from our tree planting events. So I'm excited to bring another one out and in this case, to get to work on the Farmington. So again, sharing that out there, that this is a perfect example of partnering with an adjacent organization like FRWA, which we do continually, but in this case, to go ahead and get some good trees in the ground pre-season before April 1st. So really, really good event. I'm excited about that one. I'm going to pass this one over, an FRWA culvert assessment project for connectivity.
Yeah, so I'll grab this one. So this is a really interesting project on Ratlam Road and Ratlam Brook. It's a tributary to the Farmington. We're working again with our friends at the Watershed Association, and we are currently working to do a watershed assessment. There's been some, I would call it landowner complications moving in the past project we were working to do a project on Hogback Road. That project has been a little bit challenging, so we're working to reallocate funds towards Ratlam Road project where there is really in really good buy-in, really good interest from the town. They have they own the property surrounding it and also the road, Ratlin Road, where there's a severe barrier. You can see it in the middle of the frame there. So we're interested in replacing that with the town and our friends at the association for fish passage. So right now we're in early stages of doing watershed assessments to figure out how the dams and the culverts in that watershed are affecting each other, the mileages from opening up that culvert for fish passage, a little bit about the fish, the temperature data if it's available, flow data, the land use around it, and potentially how the ski resort is using water and the dams in that watershed as well. So it's a little bit of a complicated system that we're starting the analysis for, but we feel confident that that culvert restoration project will be uh, perfect and moving underway shortly. Tracy, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think it's a good example of kind of a sub-watershed focus. There's one, typically what happens is one culvert gets tagged by somebody, and in this case, I think it was the Farmington River chapter folks that were out and they were doing assessments, like you said, Rich. They're chapter members that have certification, and they found this culvert, brought it to everyone's attention, and it's like, oh, that one looks good. Let's also look at all of the other culverts in the watershed to see what it would mean to reconnect the entire sub-watershed. And so I think that particular one, typically you need one to start the whole momentum. And so I feel like as we move through and we start to do the analysis and stream walks, we have the opportunity for multiple culvert replacements, and then there's a dam, and it could, provide a lot of really good open habitat, high quality for trout to move from the Farmington. So it's going to be a good one.
And as chapters watch this online later, we can help other chapters get certified, people that may be interested in doing it in their own chapters.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Very important.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I think in the case of, the Farmington River Watershed Association, they kind of look to the chapter to help with those kinds of skills. And I think that probably exists in other watersheds where it just adds to the technical expertise in the watershed. So it's truly it's valuable.
All right. Moving on. Okay. On to the Housatonic.
Okay, salmon kill. So when I started at TU, this was one of my projects. I had two projects that I was hired on to do. One was salmon kill. It was part of the NRD money way back. And so I started at TU at 2013. And from that point on, we did over 20 sites. We were working on private property. Salmon kill, if you don't know, it's a tributary to the Housatonic in the northwest corner. And the sites were designed to kind of be almost like a pearl necklace throughout the entire watershed. So making sure that we had really high quality habitat spaced in, every, quarter mile throughout the watershed. And so they were small projects, but they accumulated through time. And the photo in the top left was our first project that we installed. And it's in the bottom left was the bare banks. We had just put in the large wood, which helps to stabilize the banks. It helps provide that diversity of habitat and scour, great pools and hiding places for trout. And then we planted it with Hotchkiss back in 2013. Hotchkiss private school is really close by, and they have been a strong partner of ours. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But they planted that site. We planted subsequent years, but this photo in the top left is after 5 years, and we have trees that, are 16, 18 feet. And you can see the large wood, that accumulation that happens. So we had put wood in, and then it all kind of accumulates. We've got shade. We've got some really awesome diversity of habitat. And that relationship with Hotchkiss has been strong and ongoing from the beginning. And we have a really, really important, I would say, only because he is so dedicated to TU. He has been supporting our program, our staff program, at TU and that relationship with Hotchkiss for about a decade. And so every year we try to have them out for a planting. We have one coming up in the next month, and they've helped us with so many plantings, so many trees, but also macro studies. I've been into their classrooms to talk about stream ecology. It's just been a really fun relationship over the years. And the NRD money is gone. We used that one. We used it all up. We got a couple of different phases of that, but we're currently working on another project with Salisbury Land Trust. They just purchased a really important parcel kind of in the midst of the Salmon Kill Valley that we'll be hopefully trying to figure out funding for and working on in the next couple of years.
Awesome.
John, you want to do this one?
Yeah, so in the Housatonic watershed, we're working with a bunch of different partners. We're working with the Housatonic Valley Association and also Save the Sound, who are both identified through various culvert assessments. They've been doing priority culverts that they've approached us to see next steps and identifying ways of retrofitting and improving the culverts for fish passage and flooding. So we've worked with 3 different towns across the Naugatuck watershed and another town in Beacon. I'll just say Beacon Falls, and we're working with them to work and retrofit a bunch of culverts that they've been having historical flooding at, as well as are not passing fish. So we have about 4 or 5 different culvert projects throughout the Housatonic River that we are working on retrofitting and working with landowners and the local watershed organizations to improve upon these culverts.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll just add to that in that so that has been a kind of a role that we've played in the Northwest corner with both Save the Sound and HVA, is that they've been doing a lot of outreach to the towns, doing the culvert surveys, prioritizing, and then we've been helping them with the designs of the culverts and then helping to permit. So that relationship's been going on for a while, but we have our first 2 culverts that we've worked on together on Macedonia Brook that will be going and being replaced this year. So it's been a lot of the pre-planning. Sometimes it's amazing how long it takes from pre-planning to getting funding and then implementation, but we're excited to see the 2 projects on Pond Mountain Road, which is a tributary to Macedonia Brook, which is a tributary of the Housatonic, and those will be replaced this summer.
In the storms of 2024 in August, a lot of the culverts that failed in Seymour and in Southbury and down by Derby were ones that were identified as needing work.
Exactly.
So this is very important.
Yeah, and I'll just keep going with Macedonia. So Macedonia Brook, another tributary to the Housatonic, it flows in at Kent School in the town of Kent. And when I first started, my chapter is the Northwest Connecticut chapter, and they brought this, they said, we really need to be working on Macedonia. So we've been over the years, again, things take a long time, but we started with the working with DEEP and HVA on notching the dam that's on the Kent school property, so we could get movement of trout from the Housatonic up into Macedonia. That's kind of the first barrier. And then on the school, we've done 1 or 2 plantings with Connecticut, the Northwest chapter, with the students. You can see them all out there in their rain jackets, doing a planting. And then most recently, we have secured through, actually it's a very large initiative, land conservation initiative. It's a regional conservation planning through NRCS. We have some funding to continue our work on Macedonia, whether that's doing restoration work on the Kent school property or refocusing that money to more barrier removals or working higher in the watershed. We're still trying to determine where exactly to work, but we do have funding with HVA, and we'll be working on that in the next couple years.
Awesome. I think it's great. Obviously, you can tell we have a special enjoyment level for getting the kids from the local schools out to take part in our projects. As many of you all know who have come to love Trout Unlimited, our youth education programs are at the core of what we do. We're really trying our best to instill a love for trout in many facets. In our Trout in the Classroom program, where children are helping to raise young fry trout and then release them in the streams. That's one level of appreciation. And then also, too, what I think is worth noting, and we'll talk a little bit more about later, but we've expanded our education program to really include not only our now very famous college program called Costa TU 5 Rivers, which has college programs all over the United States, sending people all over the country fishing and having great expeditions. But we've also expanded that program now to include high school. So the same program directors in our youth education department have now started building out curriculum to help high school programs, which you'll hear a lot more about from TU in the next couple of years. But if you are connected to a local university that would like to have a fly fishing program, let me advocate again for TU's 5 Rivers program, which is not just a fly fishing club. It's actually largely about conservation. And so we take the same kids that are in our high school planting programs, we get them into colleges with a 5 Rivers program, take them fishing, and then also have them back out tree planting again. So we continue to grow that cycle of growing conservationists. So I think this is really neat. And the next slide's for me, because we're going to talk a little bit about, again, getting folks out and involved. Over the past 2 seasons, we've gotten to take part in a statewide survey with Connecticut Deep. We started specifically on tributaries of the Farmington to test out some of the tools that TU had and just how far we could stretch those usages to help support Deep's data collection on wild trout streams throughout the Farmington. So within our first fall, we had, I would say, maybe between 12 and 15 total volunteers, and we covered a good amount of tributaries up and out of the Farmington, including tributaries of the reservoirs. In 2024, we actually expanded our map and we put out a statewide invitation for folks to get involved. The cool thing about the spawning surveys is that it's not a one-day invitation like our tree plantings or a 2-day invitation. It can be done anytime during the spawning season. So for our brown trout and brook trout throughout Connecticut, the fall months between the end of October, November into December and January have been really important data collection periods. So when folks ask us, as they do frequently, what can I do? How can I help? This is a huge value add, not only just for TU, for our conservation staff, but also for helping support the state conservation. We also, again, at TU are famous for having very passionate anglers. Our anglers really care about wild trout. Something I think we're very proud of is the fact that we try to encourage really good practice to value trout of all styles. We appreciate the hatchery trout in some of our rivers. We also really want to advocate for best practice about wild trout. There is no better way to prove the presence and importance of wild trout than to be out during the spawning season and see numbers of fish moving into spawn or to notice reds. So what we do is we use an app on our smartphones. It's TU's Red Survey app. It's done by GIS. And again, this can be done at any time. The training can be done through YouTube. Again, TU National's YouTube page has a walkthrough on how to use the app. You can head out to any one of your streams and start surveying when you like. If there's rainbow trout in your area, you can also survey in the spring, like right now, when there might still be some rainbow trout spawning activity happening nearby. So the tool is really great for, in general, getting to know where your wild trout are throughout their spawning season, and we encourage people to use it. I will say that before the 2025 fall spawning survey, there'll be another invitation for folks to sign up. And as we did in 24, we're going to be looking at specific reaches. And this is how it ties back to our priority waters. Within the Pine Brook watershed and the Shetucket watershed specifically, we did get some spawning surveys done last year, and we want to expand on that data. There are absolutely wild trout that are very important and high on our list to protect. And so, again, we're hoping to get folks really excited about some of these watersheds that we haven't gotten more traction on yet. We haven't done any dam removals or culvert replacements or restoration, but a really important first step for us is to gain data about wild trout and get condition reports on the rivers. That will help move on to our next steps. So again, all of this is to plug our spawning survey as one of the best, and again, a complete statewide program. Doesn't matter what TU chapter you're in, doesn't matter if you're what your favorite river is. You can pick a stream nearby your house, sign up for that one on our survey list, bounce over there every Friday and go check on what's happening, and you'll be giving great reports to help wild trout data. So that's the spawning survey in a nutshell.
It's great.
Well, this is a cool one. John, can you handle this one?
Yeah, so something I'm really excited about is a new app that we're also working on the development of called the Trout Spotter app. It's in the On the Water Fish app, which is an app that Trout Unlimited and USGS is working to develop together. And it's an AI recognition app where if you take a picture of your trout a specific way, it will help identify trout and where they are. It doesn't blow up your spot. It keeps everything secret. It's really just for scientists to figure out and where populations are active and where they are not. Where we're excited to use this is for sea-run brook trout, where we know there are still around in sections of Connecticut. We're interested in getting volunteers who might be interested in honing in and taking pictures and helping actually start to get scientific documentation of sea-run brook trout. And this is one way that we could start to document it is by getting AI to start recognizing the color patterns of specific sea-run brook trout, where right now, unless you do genetic testing on them and fin clipping, it's hard to get actual proven scientific data that that is specifically a sea-run brook trout, where we're hoping that this is a less intrusive way to start positively identifying these sea-run brook trout that may be throughout the state of Connecticut. So I'm really excited about it. This app, the Trout Spotter, is currently going through Maine, Massachusetts, and Montana. And this spring, it's supposed to be being unraveled in Connecticut throughout Long Island Sound as well. So I'm really excited about moving forward with it and helping develop the actual app and giving data to try to find and scientifically finally find sea-run brook trout and prove that they're here. So I'm really excited about that one.
I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And do you want to talk about the grant that you applied for
Yes.
this? And then
Sorry,
also
I got so excited about the app that I completely forgot that. The reason why I'm so excited to talk about this app is because I applied for a NOAA grant. We applied for a NOAA grant with the regional TU staff in Maine, New Hampshire, down through Massachusetts into Rhode Island. We're working on this big barrier assessment to prioritize and help streamline the process of barrier removals in those regions and prioritize 3 different removal projects. In one would be Connecticut, the regions would be Maine, then Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and then Rhode Island, Connecticut. 3 different priority structures in those regions for removal. We would get design, permitting, and move forward with the landowners to start removal of or retrofitting of those culverts for fish passage and flood risks. So that's part of the reason why this Trout Spotter app is there. Getting baseline data, filling in these data gaps is part of that the grant I was talking about to help build where we want and help prioritize where these projects are on the landscape and where the fish are in the landscape as well.
Yeah, I think that's great, John. And I'll just add that, you know, for us as staff, that's really an important part is that we have all kinds of great ideas and aspirations, but we have to actually do our grant writing to be able to fund our work. And so this has the potential, of course, we applied for it maybe before the craziness of the federal government and grants. We're still optimistic, but this one would set the stage for some work in the Mystic River and Pawcatuck priority waters where we haven't had specific work happening. So again, if we get this grant, then all of a sudden you see all this movement in those specific priority waters. So it is really exciting. So we'll keep you updated on what we hear.
Totally. I think it'd be excellent. I'm hopeful too, as John mentioned, as soon as this app got brought up, I was hopeful that it would be something we could bring online before the fall spawning survey that we just talked about, as it would be so great to really kind of maximize our time out there and specifically head as far east as we can and try to document some sea run brook trout, which would be amazing. So covering the South Shore Mystic and Pawcatuck River, that actually covers the last of our 6 listed priority waters. But we're going to slide into a few more really important, noteworthy projects, as well as some exciting developments across Connecticut. So I'll skip on our next slide, which moves us to the Norwalk.
Yeah, so I could touch on the Norwalk. We're having a lot of progress on the Norwalk, as much progress as we can, being temporarily frozen with the current administration hiccups. But we are making a lot of progress as much as possible. So I'm currently finishing up watershed assessments and sub-watershed assessments, looking at how the different watersheds in the actual Norwalk are have their barriers and how fish are limited in their migration, tallying up all of the mileage for potential projects once these are removed. We are having regular meetings with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to talk progress and updates. I've talked with a couple different organizations to update databases so we can prove that these are the dams that still exist. There's no dams below these, and we're in good shape to move forward. We've been working with Save the Sound on that as well. I've been keeping the ball rolling with Connecticut Deep, also Metro North and DOT for permissions and uh, landowner agreements. We've had landowner agreement letters sent out for removal for the town of Reading, here for Factory Pond Dam, the top 2, and the bottom left one, which is Cannondale. And we are working on getting that same letter towards for the bottom right one, which is the landowner is Department of Transportation, which is because it's a railroad trestle. So that's been a little bit more challenging, but we're making a lot of good progress. I've also started exploring the permits for moving forward for next steps. Once we're able to submit the RFPs that we have prepped and ready to go for these projects ready. We're also, I've given a couple talks about the river for the Reading Grange Association. We had a lot of fun at that. They had an environmental summit. I talked about water quality on the river, ways they can stay involved, and we've had a lot of progress with outreach and volunteer events and organizing as well. And Charles is here to talk a little bit more about all of his great work in that area too.
I love it.
So,
I am I'm sorry, go ahead, Tracy.
sorry.
Did I cut you off?
Oh, I was just going to say that this particular grant that we have is one that Jeff Yates wrote for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Fish Passage is a national program. We have 1.3 million, and the overall scope is to fully remove the Cannondale Dam, which is on the lower left, and then do final designs for the dam removal on the Trestle Dam, lower right, and then kind of set the stage, do conceptual level designs for the other 2 on Factory Brook. So it's removal, so we'll get a lot of miles that way from the Cannondale, and then setting the stage for future projects on the Norwalk. And both Jeff and Gerald have been doing a lot of work on the Norwalk, and so this is a good segue for you, Gerald.
Nailed it. Great yield there, Tracy. Thank you. I was going to say the same as we move our way back to the southwestern Fairfield County side of Connecticut. Definitely want to leave the space open for Gerald to show you all some really cool stuff. So next slide.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. I'm Gerald Barafate. I live in Wilton, Connecticut. I'm the coordinator with the Mianus chapter serving Lower Fairfield County. I handle pretty much a little bit of everything, a lot of our trips, events, and help coordinate some conservation projects ranging from small-scale river cleanups and tree plantings all the way to some larger-scale habitat restoration projects that we've done a lot of in the last couple of years. So yeah, a couple of things that I wanted to touch upon tonight was number one, Big Apple brook trout, searching for brook trout in the shadows of New York City. This is a really exciting community science and monitoring project that was funded by Trout Unlimited's Embrace the Stream program. We just recently received funding from a private foundation to expand this project's reach even further. So basically, the idea of what we're trying to do here is use environmental DNA technology, which is a really cool new tech that John actually taught me about many, many years ago when we talked about training the trainer. This is the first time I'd ever heard about it, and it absolutely blew me away at the time. And now we're doing some really awesome stuff with it. So basically, the way that it works is from just a water sample, you can really quickly conduct presence absence surveys to look for pretty much any fish species that you want to. In our case, we're primarily looking for brook trout and brown trout, so we're testing for those two species. And the way that it works is fish, like all living things, are constantly sloughing off genetic material, whether it's uric acid through the gills, scale fragments, or especially during and after the trout spawn season, like gametes and that sort of things that are genetic material that's getting mixed up in the drift and can be picked up by these water samples. We ship it off to a lab and they can give us whatever we're looking for, which is really fantastic. So thanks to the two awesome pieces of funding that we just had come in, we're going to be doing 125 samples from not just Connecticut, but also New York as well. A lot of our rivers here that the Miamis chapter serves are, their headwaters are in New York State. So this is a really exciting collaborative effort between both the Croton Watershed chapter and the New York City chapter too as well. At our training and assessment event that we did a couple weeks back at the Miamis Gorge Preserve, we had a ton of volunteers from all three of those chapters come out. We took over 40 samples for a bunch of different watersheds. Some of the results have come in, which is really awesome. We found a few brook trout streams and some wild brown trout populations as well, which is super exciting. The whole real purpose behind why we're doing this effort is we're trying to fill in gaps in data that we don't know exist. A lot of these rivers that we're sampling either haven't been surveyed in decades or surveyed at all. Before we launched this larger scale effort, we ran a pilot project last year where some of our volunteers documented brook trout on the Rippewam River, and it had been last surveyed in 1936. We had just recently come back to do some electrofishing there this past summer, confirmed the finding. DEP did a formal population study, and we added it to the coldwater habitat map. The reason why that's important as well, a really awesome thing that the Connecticut Council got done in 2021 was adding enhanced regulatory protection to the construction general permit. So basically, any development that's taking place within a mapped coldwater resource has increased setbacks. There's green infrastructure inclusions that are, a part of the permit, which is really awesome. The only problem with that is a lot of the data that we'd use to make those decisions are pretty outdated. So this is a really good start to help prioritize future electrofishing and formal population samples to get these streams added so we can advocate for that regulatory protection and also help prioritize future habitat restoration projects and dam removal too in the future for some of these unknown trout populations, which is really awesome. We're going to be doing a lot more of this stuff. We got to get to 125 samples, which is really awesome. So we're going to do a few more before the end of the spring and the temperatures heat up and the water gets low before ramping things up again in the fall. So definitely reach out if you want to be involved with this project. Just reach out. We can get you trained up, get your kits, and out sampling in no time.
Awesome. Super cool.
How can you say no to that?
Right?
Sounds fun.
So yeah, another really exciting thing that I'm really happy to share with, and that's really kind of come into form in the last couple of weeks, even too, as well. Some of the work that the chapter has been doing on the Miamis River, our namesake river. We've been doing a lot of work there over the last couple of years. This development, our next big priority project, is the removal of the Newman Mills Dam. So this is coming right off the heels of a major habitat restoration project that we completed this past fall. It was $200,000. We constructed 16 deep pool thermal refuge habitats, added a ton of large wood, over 4,500 linear feet at the Miamis River. This was a really exciting project. It added a lot of awesome habitat to this section of the river there. But we want to go even further. One of our big goals with our chapter is really kind of a holistic full restoration of the Miamis River. Out of all the rivers that we've done a lot of work on in Fairfield County, like the Norwalk River, for example, the Miamis really has the highest potential as a premier wild trout stream because of the fact that it's a tailwater. This river bubbles up from the bottom of the Barge Reservoir at about 53 degrees. We've got temperature data from the summer. But the issue is there's a series of dams below the barge reservoir where that tailwater releases, that in the summertime, that water slows down in the impoundments, it heats up, and it gets to levels that are not suitable for wild trout. And also the way that the dams are staggered in the river, there simply isn't enough connectivity between the dams to support, a trout's life history and, moving to find places to spawn, seek out colder refuge in the summer. So really the two pieces of the equation that we really want to do as a part of our restoration of the Mayanes River is number one, restoring habitat, which we're working on. And the second one, and the really important one, is removing dams to restore some connectivity. So this is really exciting news. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to be putting out an RFP to hire an engineering firm to start doing initial survey work and design so that we can hopefully put together a permit-ready package, string some more pieces of funding together, and hopefully get this dam out within the next 2 years. That would be really exciting and open up nearly 6 miles of the Mayanes River. And we would have wild trout back in the upper reaches of the river just like that, with that much connectivity and that much cold water flowing down from the barge. So that's super, super exciting.
That's awesome. Great stuff.
Super.
Next slide, we left the space for you, Rich, if we could, just to kind of connect the dots to the council. So I'll go ahead and advance this over, and I know you've got a couple minutes if you wanted it. The space is yours.
Okay. I think what this shows is that we are on the right path. We need all the chapters to start voting some people into the council so we can start growing this even further. The opportunities in the state of Connecticut are astronomical. Everywhere I go, I see opportunities for projects, opportunities for growth. I think we've got, for the first time since I've been with Trout Unlimited, since Jeff has left, a great team from the eastern section of the state, of the country, that are going to help us start building Connecticut to where it once was for the Trout Unlimited. I'm concerned with some chapters. We're going to have to give them some help. I just want to see us grow and get younger. I want to see us getting more people on the council. So it's just not the two biggest chapters in the state that are getting all the attention. I want every single chapter in the state to have an opportunity to pitch these hardworking people from TU to say, hey, we have a dam that we would love to remove. Hey, we have the opportunity to fix a culvert. And I think that when we do that, and I think this great opportunity to plant these trees up on the Farmington River next weekend, the 28th and 9th, I ask all chapters to sign up and come out and get involved, even if you're just there to meet other like-minded people. And, maybe just recruit for your chapter, because there's going to be people from all over the state. So that's all I wanted to say. We have to continue growing both chapters and the council. We have to get stronger again, and that's pretty much all I have. And if you have any questions, my contact information, call me, email me. If you're interested in taking any role or responsibility in the council, so we can help all the chapters continue to grow, get younger, and get their own projects that they can be proud of. Thank you.
That's a great
Thanks,
message.
Rich.
Yeah, it was awesome.
When you figure out how to get younger, I'm gonna ask you.
We work a lot with Farmington Anglers Association, and they're younger than we are. And I think it's because, and if you look at some of the younger chapters, I think the ones that do more, less, speaker events where, there's a speaker at a restaurant or something like that, and do more actual live events like tree plantings, like cleanups, maybe just a fishing night and a couple of hamburgers and hot dogs, stuff like that. Getting more people culvert ready and that type of stuff. I think that's where we're going to get younger. Because,
absolutely.
If we don't do those things, because all the chapters that are most successful, Jeff Yates had a couple of meetings where all of the state councils came to a meeting, and we had about 30 of the 50 states at one of the meetings, and it was a Zoom meeting. And the chapters and the councils that are doing the greatest and have the youngest are the most active. It's as simple
Yeah.
as that.
Yeah.
They're the most active. And when you do get young people, getting them involved and getting them assignments to, start leading. Because nothing's worse than getting someone and then losing them because you didn't keep them busy, and so forth. So I still believe that, and that's why I took this role, and I, hope we can continue to, work on it. We'll set up been very busy, at the state capitol, testifying with Tom Carpenter. And I just sent out to all the chapters some updates on some of the more important uh, bills that are passing through committee and are in the financial, review section now. And also we can provide, some news on the hatchery bill, the monies. It sounds opportunity that the hatcheries are going to be able to move some money around, and they may not be hit with the $486,465 reduction this year. So we're going to, wait and keep listening, and before we send any voter voice out with Jesse, who helped us last year a great deal. So those are some of the things where we need help. We need some people that are as energized as this TU team here. So we'll keep
Yeah.
asking.
And I think that our movement, so the way that we have seen kind of that progression is that when we have projects, I think Gerald and his work is a good example, is when you have really fun things for the members to do in the community, then they come out. And so that as we move through the state and start to develop more and more projects, will, similar
Exactly.
to the Farmington, right? We'll start to get that
Yep.
kind of energy too. So
I believe so. Mianus has great energy. And I know that a lot of the chapters have been saying they've been, having trouble, getting enough people. So
yeah.
I think these will give us opportunities to meet people,
Yeah.
minded people that are, maybe you'll start, showing up to other events, and then we can, easiest way to get a new member is invite them.
Mhm.
Ask them to join something like this that we're doing next weekend.
I think so too. I appreciate that too, Rich, because I feel the same, that in the whole topic of tonight's call being about priority waters, I think that something that strategy aligns is that regardless of where folks are located, we all like moving about and visiting the different rivers of the state, whether you're fishing or paddling, you like to go see different rivers. So we're certainly not bound by an invisible line of territory. We all just kind of get together and learn about the rivers we like. And lots of folks get to TU for different reasons. So one of the last few slides in our discussion tonight, we'll get a little bit into that too, but folks come to us for different reasons. I do think advocacy is one of those really important points. It is worth noting this email was sent to all Connecticut members as well. We talked a lot tonight about funding, challenges with funding, but also great successes with funding. The point of what you're seeing on screen and what you'll see when you go to tu.org and you click the Take Action button, what you'll see is a necessary time for response for folks to get in contact with their senators, let folks know at a higher level beyond their hometowns just how big the work of conservation is to watersheds in their communities. So there is a Take Action campaign that's on the TU website right now. Every person can and should be encouraged to use it. I hope in the future that we have more specific opportunities within the state of Connecticut and around the Northeast where we can connect folks who are interested in advocacy as a way to help TU to really take part in those missions, to get the word out as much as possible, and to encourage folks in representation to really believe in our work at TU. So I think a part of what you saw tonight were some really incredible feats accomplished by partnerships and funding, both national and statewide. So this is a really important time to really kind of celebrate what it is we do at TU. And I hope that tonight showed a lot of that. I do think it is important to kind of bring us back to that. Bouncing to just the last slide here, one thing I want to draw on is, as Rich mentioned, and is a common chord with folks who get to TU, this, man, how do I get involved? What do I do? How does my chapter get younger? How do we get folks involved? that can do more for the chapter. Trout Unlimited has an entire department dedicated to volunteer operations, which is exactly that. Jeff Yates, whose name was mentioned earlier, has a full staff, which includes individuals on the engagement team as well. They put together trainings that are really informative. You can find all of the listing of all of those at tu.org/training. You can also go to tu.org/events, and you'll see a wide variety of events in your state or again, nationally hosted events like these that are on Zoom. Our team here in the Northeast region, Connecticut, New York, expanding into Vermont and Pennsylvania as well as we grow, is under the TU Northeast Instagram and Facebook page. We post everything we can there about what we're doing in the field and also what we're finding that's working for our chapters, cool events in the area. Last piece, you see this circle QR code here, obviously drawing folks to an opportunity to stay in the loop. We do send out occasional regional newsletters as well. We did just send one off this week. If you didn't get that email and you are a TU member in the state of Connecticut, you'll want to make sure that you have not opted out of TU emails. Otherwise, you wouldn't get that email. So just an FYI that is available and you can follow along. We do send out these periodic emails to our memberships. So I think that brings everything I had to kind of a closing point. So I'll slide us over here. But Tracy, John, Gerald, Rich, anyone, any closing remarks we want to hit to?
I mean, I'm glad we put together this slide because sometimes it feels like Connecticut's big and, we've only just started, but really we have been working pretty diligently for a long time. And I think Gerald is a good example of how much work he's done. We've been working in the Northwest corner for a long time. We have a lot of possibilities with John and Jesse into the future. And so I think, Rich, with your energy and your focus on building the council, I feel really optimistic about the possibilities for Connecticut. So I think it's good. It's a small group right here. We're basically preaching to the choir, but that's okay.
That's all right. I should say, I think this is exactly that. And again, feel free if anyone, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to get to bring you all together and chat with this group, and glad we have this to share with a bigger audience too.
I think the more people that see these victories and then start asking, how can I get one in my chapter? I think is a big key as well. I mean, these are big victories. And I think celebrating these victories and maybe putting it in a newsletter on a regular basis is important too. Coming from an aerospace industry, everything was celebrated every time you improved anything, anytime you drove costs down, anytime you did something that was helped the whole company. It was a victory party, so I think this has to be seen by all the chapters. So
I love that. I will make sure that's part of my mission to get it out to everyone. So I appreciate you saying that too. And thank you all for being a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Cool. Okay. Well, I think that pretty much brings us to a close. I want to make sure there's space too, Mike, since you are our lone guest outside of staff and crew. I want to make sure you get a chance. We did say there would be a Q&A section. So if you have any questions, please feel free.
Oh, I have lots of questions, but I understand.
Oh, good.
This is being recorded. So
no, you're welcome to fire away. That's okay.
No.
On or off air, whichever you choose.
You know what? I don't know. I can't. I don't want to try and verbalize any of them right now. But thank you. Right now, thank you all of you for what you're doing, and I appreciate the work that you've done, and I look forward to getting to know you better in the future. How's that?
That's perfect.
Beautiful.
Thanks a lot.
Please.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, y'all. Have a great night.
thank you.
All right. Thanks,
Thanks,
y'all.
everyone.
Talk to you soon.